And Saifuddin is the former Imam of Masjid al-Islam. He has been a New Haven area resident for 28 years. He currently serves as the assistant Imam of Masjid al-Islam, studied psychology at the University of Pittsburgh, and currently works at an assisted living facility.
Yes, or group home.
Group home for people with disabilities.
Yes,
right?
autism.
Saifuddin is here talking to us today about the Muslim month of Ramadan and about being Muslim around the world in today's time. So we are in the solar calendar, the 24th day of May, but in the lunar calendar of the Islamic or the Muslim calendar, quote unquote, we are actually in the 8th month of the year, getting ready to enter the 9th month, which is the Muslim month of Ramadan. Ramadan is most noted for the fact that it is the month in which Muslims fast. So, Saifuddin, we want to talk a little bit more about the details about Ramadan, and so the people can understand what it is, why it's done, what's the significance of it. So, it's the 9th month in the Muslim calendar. So, one of the questions that people ask first is, what is a Muslim calendar?
Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. As Muslims, we follow a different calendar from the Gregorian calendar. Our calendar is a lunar calendar, and it's 12 days shorter than the Gregorian calendar. So with this calendar, you're able to fast, for example, throughout the year. I've been Muslim for 37 years, and now I've fasted basically completely throughout the year. So all the 12 months of the year, I've fasted. Because of this difference, in the calendars, that ours is 12 days shorter, that every year Ramadan goes back 12 days. So this is basically the difference between our calendar. We actually cite what is called the hilal, or the actual crescent moon, whereas the Gregorian calendar, you go and you cite the actual black or the full moon, and we wait until the crescent is actually seen, and that's when we start our months. So each month is started either 29 to 30 days based on the sighting of the crescent moon.
So Ramadan starts on when the moon is sighted.
Yes.
And once the moon is sighted, what does Muslims have to do?
Once the moon is sighted, Muslims are obligated. Those people who are Muslim, who are sane, who are not traveling, who are not ill or not sick, are obligated to fast from dawn to sunset for 29 to 30 days during the month of Ramadan. And this means that you abstain from food, drink, that means water, everything, because everybody always asks, you can't drink water? No, you can't drink water. You can't cohabitate with your spouse, during the daylight hours. So dawn to sunset. So during the daylight hours, from dawn to sunset, you abstain from the food, the drink, cohabitating with your spouse. And when the sun sets, then, we have most people break their fast, and then they pray their Maghrib prayer, then they have their dinner, and then we go for a special prayer at night called the Tarawih prayer, which is the very special prayer where Muslims congregate throughout the nights during the month of Ramadan.
So when you, in addition to this abstinence from food, drink, being with your spouse, and so I should probably just clarify, it doesn't mean you can't live with your spouse.
Oh, no.
It's it's sexual intimacy. You
Absolutely.
can't have sexual intimacy.
Right.
We don't have two houses during Ramadan. It kind of sounded like that to me,
I'm
so I
sorry.
was like, okay, let me clarify that.
I apologize.
That's okay. So when we have this abstinence and of food and drink, so what if you have to take medication, if you just get really thirsty and
Right.
dehydrated,
Right.
how do
Well, I mean,
navigate
for
that?
people who are ill or are sick or anything of that nature, like some people that have diabetes and things of this nature, they don't have to fast, but they are obligated to feed a poor person every day of the month of Ramadan. So this is an expiation for not being able to fast. Now, if someone just gets thirsty, and of course, if they want to pass out or something of this nature, they can break their fast. But we try. This is the month of fasting. We're trying to endure the hardships, of the basic, necessities that we need every day. Food, drink, all of these things. These are the things that, yes, our body craves. But, during this month of Ramadan, we're making this great sacrifice, and God says in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. That fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may learn self-restraint and taqwa and God consciousness. So this is the way in which we're trying to fast, to get closer to God, to see that, for instance, people who don't have, how they feel. So this is a time where our prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, gave the most charity. He gave the most money during this time, because, this is the time that we are supposed to be thinking about not just ourselves, but other people, those who don't have. So that fasting gives us that sense of, okay, people who don't have food to eat, that we're more willing to give them, to help them, so that they can have what we have.
So you mentioned that in the Quran it says that fasting has been prescribed as it has been prescribed for those before you, and that is in a reference to the Christians and the Jews,
right.
which Muslims believe preceded them in religion, in revelation. Why is the Muslim fast different? So Christians fast during Lent, and they kind of get to pick and choose what they're going to fast from. Jews fast, but their fast is shorter in duration and not as strict. What is the difference? Kind of like why is this a stricter and longer fast?
Well, I think one of the things we have to mention is that pretty much many of the people that fasted before the Muslims, they fasted in the same manner that we fasted. For example, our prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said Prophet David's fast was the best fast, and he fasted on alternate days. There was a man who came to the prophet and he wanted to fast all the time. I can fast every day. The prophet said, no, fast once a month. He said, no, I can do more than that. He said, fast, on, Monday and Thursday. He said, no, I can do more than that. He said, then fast every other day. He said, I can do more than that. The prophet said, there's no more than that. The best fast was the fast of Prophet David, peace and blessings be upon him, who fasted on alternate days. So the difference basically in the fast is mainly the practice of the fast. God has ordained certain things for people to do throughout time. As we believe as Muslims, Islam is not a different religion from Judaism, Christianity, or any of the other religions that came before. Islam means submission to the will of God, and those who submit are called Muslims. So we believe Moses, Jesus, Solomon, Aaron, David, Noah, all these prophets of God were Muslim, and they practiced the same religion. God has only sent one message, and that is the message of submission. There's a verse in the Quran that says, oh, my people, submit to God, just submit, so this is Islam. So therefore, all of these prophets in some form or fashion practiced this fasting in the same manner as the Muslims. However, they were not, from my understanding, giving this month of Ramadan. This was something that was given to the Muslims. However, Moses was ordered to fast. Jesus was ordered to fast. All of the prophets of God were ordered to fast in the same basic way that we fast, that you abstain from dawn to sunset. So there's not, I think people have kind of gotten away, from the actual fast of their religions. As we said, that it's the same thing that God has revealed throughout time. So
how do Muslims today, so we know prophets lived thousands and thousands of years ago. What are some of the ways that fasting, it has changed, not in its practice, but in the way that people implement it? Because, as particularly here in America, like, here in New Haven, as everywhere else in America, the businesses don't shut down during the day and open at night because the Muslims are fasting, right? Sure, in majority of Muslim countries, the whole country changes its routine because of the fast. So how do Muslims in America implement this fasting? You're hungry, you're tired, you're sometimes people suffer from brain fog, and they still got to get the work done in the deadline. How does that work in America?
Right. Well, one of the things, of course, when we are fasting, that God, or the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, told us to get up, in the early hours of the morning before we start to fast and have a light meal, which is called suhoor. So every Muslim should get up for this meal, drink something, eat something, and this can usually get them throughout the day, and this is not an obligation, but it's something that the Prophet Muhammad encouraged us to do, to get up, for there was blessings in this meal that he told us. So getting up for that meal, maybe taking your medication, if you have medication, drinking water. I mean, a lot of people drink plenty of water, eat a light meal. So this can pretty much carry you throughout the day. And basically everything else comes with faith, it's about faith. So, I've met a lot of people say, oh, I could do that, I could do that. And, some of my non-Muslim friends, and they get to about the second hour and they get so thirsty. Oh my God, I can't do this. But it comes with faith. And that's what I tell everybody. Once, you have that faith in God. I remember when I first became a Muslim, man, you just have this energy and this strength that you didn't even feel the fast. You were so pumped up about Islam and being Muslim, you didn't even feel the hunger, the thirst. Now you get a little bit thirsty towards the end maybe, but the hunger for me is not an issue. You just get maybe, especially when it's the summertime and it's very hot and humid, you may get a little thirsty. But other than that, you try to endure, and that's all based on your faith and trying to get closer to God. So once you do those things, then, I think, the fast is easy. Now, we do have a lot of challenges in our country that maybe Muslim countries don't have. People, like you say, cooking, you smell the food, you're at your job and everybody's eating, and, whereas in a Muslim country, that's not the case, So, but, we have adapted, to that. And I think this is one of the challenges that we have as Muslims in this country, that since the rest of the country is not fasting and, engaged in this, that, we have this challenge to increase our faith even more during the month of Ramadan.
When we talk about kind of like the rest of the world and the things that are, that the way that they celebrate Ramadan, what is some of the cultural things in other parts of the world about celebrating Ramadan? Because I know you've been to Morocco and different countries. Have you ever been there during Ramadan? And what is it like there?
Well, I spent 1 week in Ramadan in Morocco a couple of years back, and I mean it's just different because everything. I wouldn't say everything shuts down, but it's just a different atmosphere. The people are just different. The vibe that you feel. When people are fasting, and then you go to the masjid and you pray, and at night it's like hundreds of thousands of people, and people on the streets, and so you just have this sense of, wow, this is really, this religion that you're practicing is so beautiful. And we don't always have that in America because we have a smaller communities. But I mean, you have the whole country is fasting. It's not just like 100 people in your community, 200 people, 500. It's everybody's fasting, And unfortunately, you have Muslims who don't pray 5 times a day, but everybody fasts. Everybody. It's like tradition. You have to fast. You're really looked down upon if you don't fast.
You don't do anything else. You don't fast.
You fast. So even if you don't pray, you're gonna see them in the masjid during Ramadan 5 times a day. Everybody's fasting. So it brings a sense of identity and just self-esteem and confidence, that to see that all the people, are fasting. Like I'm just saying, when I go to Philly, I see Muslims everywhere, so it brings you that reinforcement that you need as a Muslim in America, because in Connecticut, we don't see that all the time,
What are some of the do we have American traditions around Ramadan? So in other countries that are majority Muslim, they have kind of like, traditions because it's their culture.
Right.
What are some of the things that you think that we've created or adapted for America?
Right. That's a good question. I mean, I think one of the things that we have is the camaraderie. That's one of the good things that we've had, that Muslims are just coming to Islam. A lot of us who have, as we say, reverted to Islam, that we have this closeness that I don't even think, honestly, some of the Muslim countries don't have the same type of closeness that we have, because we feel like we're a minority. So therefore, we have to come together, and during Ramadan especially, to kind of reinforce, ourselves. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we have. I mean, we do have, I know at Masjid al-Islam at one time, we had this real beautiful thing of giving gifts and all of those things, even though they do this traditionally in Muslim countries, but we just went out our way during their Eid, which is the celebration after the month of Ramadan, to like give gifts and all of these different things that we used to do, and we don't even do that like we used to do. We've all become more like laid back now, and we've been Muslim 30, 20 years, so it's not like it used to be, unfortunately.
So we do have, and I always wondered if they do this in Muslim countries. We have iftars. So iftar is when you break the fast, and in every community, at the minimum, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yes,
some communities is every single day.
Right.
2 or 3 families, they cook for the entire masjid because there's lessons in that. Do they do that in Muslim countries?
Not really, because mostly it's a family thing. So you go to your family's house.
So that's an American tradition.
Yes, so that's sort of an American tradition.
One.
So it is. It's actually an American tradition. You're right. This is a good point. And most of the the Muslim countries, their family members, they go from house to house and things of that nature. And they have the big spread, they have the nice iftar. Like my wife's tradition is a little different because we have a little controversy sometimes because
Your wife is from Morocco.
she's from Morocco. So after iftar, when you break your fast, they eat a lighter meal. They have the dates, they have like soup and eggs. And it's like that's their thing. And then after the tarawih, they have this big meal. But for us, mostly we pray the Maghrib, then we eat, and then we do the tarawih. So for her, it's kind of like I can't eat all that food and pray. But of course, you don't want to fill your belly after you fast all day. This is one of the worst things you can do is like overeat. During the
that's an interesting cultural difference. Though.
Yeah, so it's very different. So we kind of battle a little bit over that.
That is. So we do have some American traditions.
Absolutely.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM on your radio dial, or streaming live at newhavenindependent.org. And we're talking about American Muslim fasting with Saifuddin Hassan, Assistant Imam at Masjid al-Islam in New Haven, Connecticut. And we're talking about what are some of the American cultures around Ramadan and fasting. I think one of the things about being Muslim in America is that because we don't have societal pressure about being Muslim and what we can do, we kind of can pick and choose and mix and match of different cultural parts because there's a structure of Ramadan, but there's a whole bunch of stuff we can do between there.
Sure.
So I think that's a good thing. So let's talk to me a little bit about what happened. Let's talk about New Haven in particular. So Masjid al-Islam is actually the only masjid inside of the city limits of New Haven.
Sure.
And it's been here for...
We've actually been there since 1995. Yes, so 22 years. 22 years.
Yes. And before that was before, and on... It was on Dixwell before, and how long was it?
New Haven border. We were there from 89 until 95.
And now moved to George Street.
Yes.
In Masjid al-Islam, we talked a little bit about how there used to be kind of like a gift-giving culture during Eid, but during Ramadan in particular, there is the community-supported iftar programs.
Sure.
Is there anything else that the masjid itself does or sponsors?
Right. Well, one of the things, we do have an interfaith iftar, and we're hoping this year, and hopefully everyone will get the message, that we're trying to do it on the green this year. So we're making some preparations to do that along with West Haven Masjid, or they're in Orange actually now. And we want to do the interfaith iftar. And we've done this for the past 10 years, where we invite the various faith communities from New Haven and outside of New Haven County, and we invite them for a community iftar. So we've done that, as I said, the last 10 years or so, and every year is very successful. We have the Jewish community, the Christian community, we've had Buddhists and Hindus, and we have people from all faith communities come together just to partake in this meal. We talk a little bit about Islam and the basic tenets of Islam and so forth. And everyone has a nice meal, traditional Middle Eastern, American, different dishes that they can taste, and lots of nice sweets and all of that. So it's been very successful over the past few years.
So where will that be placed on the Masjid's website? Where can people get information?
Actually on masjidalislam.net, you can get that information on our website, and hopefully we will be doing it. But it's some preparation, so we're trying to do that in coordination with West Haven.
So I'll make sure I share it on my social media channels when it happens. Let's talk a little bit about some of so people always have questions about what is really the purpose? What is the connection between that Muslims hope to achieve between the soul and the body by fasting and going without for this? What is the purpose of all of this sacrifice, as opposed to okay, I'm not going to eat and I can just drink water.
Right. Sure. Well, one of the things our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said that if people don't give up vain talk and different acts of sins or whatever, God is no need of you giving up your food and your drink. So it's just not this issue of just giving up food and giving up water, but this is a training for you to give up all the bad things that you've been doing. And during that time when you're fasting, you don't always have the energy to do a lot of different things. So you're trying your best to restrain yourself from the vices the temptations, all of these different things. So you can bring about the self-restraint as we talk about, the self-control, all of these things that you need to do throughout the year. So this is sort of like a training during these 30 days so that hopefully throughout the year, you're able to resist all the temptations and all the different things that we see, especially in our society. So Ramadan is a month that we're trying to get closer to God and give up all the vices, give up all the things that we were doing probably before Ramadan. So this is a constant training every year that we go through so that we can get closer to our Almighty God.
One of the things that I think about, a funny story, what my husband would tell me, that even non-Muslims recognize that Muslims are kinder and more polite, and during this month, and he used to have a partner that every time he got on his partner's nerve, his partner would be like, "When does your Ramadan start?" I just supposed to be doing Ramadan sometimes too. You gotta be nice to me in Ramadan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, Ramadan is this, as we said, this training for us, and that's not to say that we just take this month, but there's something about Ramadan, the atmosphere, everything just changes, for the Muslim community and within your own soul, So you're knowing that this is the obligation that you have to do throughout this month. So you're working your hardest to get closer to God, so that throughout that other 11 months, you're a better person. You're treating people better. You're doing more good deeds. So this is just a training for that throughout the year.
So the official start of Ramadan is anticipated to be
Saturday, the 27th.
Okay, so it's anticipated to be Saturday, so that means the prayer starts on Friday.
The prayer will start Friday night. That will be the first time of the Tartawir prayer, the night prayer, because we start that prayer as soon as we sight the moon. People are doing other things. There are different ways to sight the moon, but we're going to basically try to sight the moon within the United States. So we're going to try to do that first, and hopefully that'll coordinate with the rest of the Muslims around the world. So
when you are talking about when we talked about earlier the 29 or 30 days of fasting, explain to the people what the celebration after the fast.
Okay, yes. This is called Eid al-Fitr, or the day after the sacrifice, and it's just a big celebration. We start out, one of the things we do, the Prophet Muhammad said, first thing you should do is eat something on the way to the prayer, so that it's known that you're not fasting, so no one is supposed to fast on the day of Eid, the celebration day. So this is a forbidden day to fast. And we all take our family, friends, whoever, and we go to the masjid or a particular spot that has been chosen for a special congregational prayer. And alhamdulillah, usually at our prayers, you see thousands of Muslims, alhamdulillah, praying all together, during this prayer. Then after that, we have some sort of lunch or brunch, and then we have a big, usually a celebration for the kids with all the bouncies and all of that stuff and food. And, and a lot of people, of course, go family, they go house to house. And one of the things I missed the most when our Malaysian brothers used to be here, very active, they used to go house to house, to like 10 houses and have that peanut sauce. And, oh man, it was amazing, so I really miss that. Our Malaysian brothers, may Allah bless them, we used to have a really good time doing the Eid. So.
I sometimes I describe the Eid to people as, it's like if you had Thanksgiving, Easter, and Christmas all combined in like a 3-day period. So we are like
I agree.
Food drunk at the end of every day. We're not fasting, so we're going to eat everything in front of us. But it's something that we look forward to, and it's a gift-giving time.
Absolutely, gift-giving time. One of the things I want to stress that our Prophet said that you fast after that 6 days of Shawwal the next month, that just like you fasted the whole year. So there's more blessings, to come, even after you fasted that whole month. That he said just fast 6 days during the month of Shawwal, and
which is right after
Ramadan.
People are encouraged. So that's a voluntary fast to do after Ramadan, immediately after Ramadan. So it takes a little bit of self-control and discipline.
Oh, definitely.
For sure. So when we talk about just being Muslim in America, right? We talk about the Ramadan is coming up. Muslims, how do Muslims cope in school and in,
Mhm.
because there's a light shined on us anyway. We'll
Of
talk a little
course.
bit in
Sure.
a minute about some of the things
Mhm.
that are going on around the world around Muslim.
Mhm.
But what are some of the recommendations, I should say?
Mhm.
I got a message the other day from someone who, her husband became Muslim, and she wanted to know, like, how does she support him? Like,
Mhm.
what are some of kind of really the practical advice to give new
Mhm.
Muslims, to give people who want to support Muslims
Right. Mhm.
around what to do in Ramadan?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, I would tell Muslims to be proud of who they are. Don't, like get in the closet, because the way that we, express our faith should be communicating. And people who are educated will be more prone to be more merciful and nice and so forth. So we as Muslims have to let ourselves be known in our society. We are part of the fabric of the society. We just didn't pop up here just a few years ago, as one said. Muslims have been here since even before slavery. Some say it started with slavery, when Muslims were brought, about 30% of the Muslims who were brought here as slaves were Muslim, but there were Muslims here even before Columbus was here, So I tell people to be proud of who you are, first of all, and don't put yourself in the closet, but be out for it. Be a da'i, be a person who's calling people and telling people about Islam. Now, one of the things, for example, in schools, what we used to do, we used to have, teachers, the principal, they would know that it's Ramadan. They would know that this is a holiday coming up for Muslims, and some of the schools have it, as a holiday now, like in New York. So people are very familiar now, more so with Muslims. So one of the things I think that we should do as Muslims, a new Muslim, as I said, just be proud of who you are, talk to the people, let them know, that I'm a Muslim, I'm not ashamed of it, and move forward from there. So.
The light is shining on Muslims all over the world, not just And unfortunately, during this last election cycle, being Muslim has been politicized.
Sure.
Recently, the other day there was a bombing in Manchester, England. It's being said that it was done by a follower of ISIS. What goes through your mind when you hear things like that and it's being perpetrated by somebody who says they're Muslim, or the media says that they're Muslim?
Well, first of all, there's a sense of anger, that someone who says that they're Muslim would actually commit an act of violence of this nature, killing innocent people, which we know is forbidden in Islam. Even in times of war, and Muslims are not complete pacifists, although we know Islam means peace. Islam is part of the, Islam was salam, salam alaikum, all of this, peace be unto you, all of this means peace. So this whole idea of someone killing innocent people, for any reason, whether we know that Muslims are being killed and bombs are flying all over the Muslim world, but this is not the way that Muslims react. This is a complete, completely away from Islam. So as a Muslim in America, when I see this happening, I get very upset because we have to face the repercussions of this in this country. As we said, Donald Trump and all the different things that have been said, the Muslim ban, and people killing Muslims, not just expressing their anger at Muslims, but we've had Muslims killed in New York and in North Carolina. So all of this is because of the not only what they're doing, as so-called Muslims, but it's because of the rhetoric that we're seeing, being politicized, as you mentioned. And one sister did a study. It was discovered that in the times of these, political, presidencies and so forth, the hatred of Islam rises even more because everybody uses this as a platform, for their agenda, this Islamophobia, So one of the things as Muslims that we have to do, once again, we have to let people know who we are. We cannot just get in the closet. As we said, we're African American. We've been here for a long time. We helped build this country, So we should not feel ashamed of who we are, especially, I know some of our Muslim brothers and sisters overseas, they have a little different understanding. They're more afraid because they haven't seen this side of America. They haven't seen the bad side, the racial side, all the tensions that we're starting to see now. They haven't seen that. We've experienced this all our lives, So we have a different understanding of the country that we live in, So
let me be devil's advocate a little bit. What do you say to people that actually point to Syria and say, like, Muslims are killing Muslims too?
Right.
So this is kind of like the nature of it. What do you see? What is your response to that?
Right. Well, first of all, Islam is not this inherently violent religion. Unfortunately, the Muslims are at a really bad state. One of the things that we must, express to people that ISIS and all these groups have killed more Muslims than they've killed anybody else. So that's the situation. Yes, there have been non-Muslims being killed, but they're killing more Muslims than non-Muslims. All these places where they're killing people who are Muslims, scholars, everyone who don't agree with their ideology. So we are the victims more of terrorism than anyone else, and I think people kind of forget that. So. But getting your question again.
What's the response to people who look at that and say like this that it may give the impression that Muslims are inherently violent?
Well, yeah. Well, as I said, first of all, we have been time tested as Muslims. If you go throughout history, if you look at the history of the Muslims, we don't have this violent history. We've had, of course, there were wars, there were different things, but just for example, when the Muslims first went into Jerusalem, and Umar bin Khattab, who was the second caliph after, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, when he went into Jerusalem, the Christian inhabitants came out and they said, we prefer your rule over the Byzantines, even though they are of our own faith, because you keep better faith with us, you're more merciful to us, and they've robbed us of our homes and our goods. So the Christians welcomed the Muslims into Jerusalem at that time. And Umar made this great treaty with them. He made a treaty with the Jewish community. And at that time, the Jews couldn't even pray. For 500 years, they weren't allowed in Jerusalem to pray. Umar allowed them to come to Jerusalem to pray at that time. So we inherently don't have this violent, religion that some people are expressing now. And I think, as one imam has said, that he thinks that some Muslims have just gone crazy because of everything that is happening in the Muslim world. The oppressive leaders. I mean, we have the worst leaders in the world who are oppressing, killing, raping, doing all these things. And they saying that they're Muslim at the same time, and they're just totally oppressing the rights of the Muslims, So Muslims are like under siege right now, and a lot of people don't know how oppressive these countries are, what they can do and what they can't do. Talking like this, they're liable to shut you down in some Muslim countries just for us talking like this. They don't have the freedom to speak openly in these societies. So the Muslims have gotten so reactionary. But this, as we said, this is a time of patience. This is why we have this month of Ramadan, to learn patience and all these qualities that we need to deal with all of these adversities that we have in life. And once you get away from that, you get away from the prayer, you get away from the fasting, you get away from the perseverance, then you start to just be an emotional reactionary. And this is not the way of Islam. The Prophet Muhammad didn't teach us to be this way. We are a people, as he said, of patience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, sta'inu bis-sabri was-salah. Inna Allaha ma'as-sabirin. O you who believe, seek God's help with patience, perseverance, and prayer. For God is with those who patiently persevere. So this is nothing new. All the things that are being said about Islam, as our Prophet Muhammad said, we're going to hear so many, the Quran says, we're going to hear so many negative things, all about the Muslims and about your faith. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to be patient, to persevere through all of this. And if we do that, then that's when the Muslims will be a better off community. But as long as we react in this nature, we're going to continue to hurt ourselves.
So we know that well, hopefully people know that, there's a virtue in patience. But what is the Islamic edict for action? So we definitely are not a religion just based on, turn the other cheek.
Right.
As other religions are. We don't have that in Islam. We are a religion of action. So what is it that Muslims need to do here in America, here in New Haven, that is going to counteract this image of Muslims being terrorists, extremists, being violent? One of the things that that is often said is that Muslims don't condemn violent terrorism. That's part of why people will say it's something you accept in your religion. So what are the things, the action points that we need to do?
Right. Well, first of all, we've been turning blue in the face condemning terrorism. Every website, every Muslim community in America and throughout the world has condemned terrorism. It's not fair that every time a Muslim commits an act of violence that we have to, or they have to, portray that this is part of Islam. They don't do this to other people in this country. If Timothy McVeigh, for example, blew up Oklahoma City, no one said, oh, all Christians are bad. I mean, you got extremists in every form of religion. You got the Ku Klux Klan. You got all of this stuff. So I'm saying people should not look at us in that light. That one Muslim does something out of the 1.7 billion Muslims in the world, and then you condemn the whole religion. This is not fair. So I think one of the things that we have to do, one of the starts is just your show. To get out there and to talk to people and let people know what Islam is and what Islam is not. We have a glimpse of Islam. We used to do it. We do it on TV. And we talk about Islam, and we try to deal with all the current events that are taking place and put an Islamic understanding on them. So I think one of the things that we need to do is more of this. We need to get out in the streets like we used to do and talk to people about Islam, and let people know that Muslims are not these people that, alhamdulillah, I mean, I think we have set a good example in our neighborhood. We tried to get the drugs out. They named the street Nabi Muhammad Way. We tried to rebuild the homes that were actually condemned at that time. So these are the type of things that you need to do to have people have a different understanding of who you are and what you are and our character. One of the things that we have to do as Muslims in Ramadan is this time to build better character. We have to, when people see us, they say, wow, I see that person. He's a nice person. She's a nice person. I mean, they treat you nice, and so forth. Like this is how whole nations became Muslim because they saw the character of the Muslims. So we as Muslims have to do a better job, at building our character so that when people see us, they say, wow, I know a Muslim. Muslims are not like that, So they'll see us as individuals as well and not just a whole community, So.
There was Professor Zarina Grewal. She wrote an article the other day about the myth of the Muslim world, and just saying that makes Muslims seem like one big monolithic glob, right? But we all have one. There's even within Islam different sects of Islam. There's different nationalities, different cultures, all of these things. So that the idea of a Muslim world does not exist.
Right. At this time, it doesn't. Right. We hope to have a unified Muslim world one day, as we had in the past. But right now, we're all dispersed based on nationalities and language and cultures and different things of this nature. But we're supposed to be, as the Quran says, one ummah, one community. So not to say that we're going to be monolithic. Everybody's not going to be completely the same. As you said, we've had schools of thought. We have different things. We have difference of opinion. In Islam, it's called ikhtilaf. We have different opinions. However, those opinions should not go beyond for us to hurt each other like we see some Muslims doing now, killing each other, hurting each other, and so forth. But these crazy ideologies like ISIS and so forth, this is way out of the realm of Islam. And just to mention, our Prophet predicted that these people would come, that there will be a people who would say their fast would be better than your fast. Prayers will be better than your prayers, but their actions will be completely opposite of Islam. So he predicted that these people would come, and they will come in every generation until the day of judgment.
So we have about 5 more minutes left to the show, and we want to leave people with some action steps. So what would you recommend so having a show, being out there and giving dawah is a great way of trying to change the image, but our show reaches 3 miles radius on the radio, right? What can the average person do to change the image of Islam in their community, in their neighborhood, in their city? What are some of the action steps?
Well, one of the things I think we need to do, as I said before, is to be more active in our communities. All the things that are going on in the New Haven community, the drugs, the youth, the problems. We as Muslims have to be more active like we used to be. I mean, I guess I'm older now. I don't have the energy like I used to have 30 years ago when we were very active in the New Haven community, dealing with the drugs, talking to the youth, doing all these different things and interacting with the people, interacting with other faith groups, which we are doing a little bit now, but we need to do more of that, because I feel that the people of faith have to be out in the forefront. We are the people who have some sort of God consciousness and morality. Not to say that other people don't, But we start out with those basic concepts as people of faith, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish. Those are the basic concepts that you have. So we have to come together and sort of be in the forefront of this movement to bring about a better society, to bring about a better world. So I think those are some of the steps that we can start with in our communities, to build those bridges, between people, nationalities, religions, all of these things, because we're living in a global world. We're living in a melting pot here in America. So we have people from everywhere in the world here in this country. But one of the beautiful things that I love about Islam, which brought me to Islam, is that we have this beauty of unity, and we have this faith that brings all humanity together, regardless of color, race. We have in our community Latinos, Caucasians, Arabs, Africans, everybody from every corner of the globe we have in our masjid. And we all bow down before one God, and that's our belief, that we are equal before God, and that, the best of you, as Allah says, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The best of you are the most that have the taqwa, the God consciousness. So only God knows what's in the heart. So this whole racial tension that we're seeing in our society, Islam can eradicate that. Martin Luther King had a dream. I always say that, black and white, Islam fulfilled that dream over 1,400 years ago. And that's what kind of brought me to Islam, because I always wanted a faith that had this, non-racial, entity, and it just bothered me, before I was Muslim. And I found that in Islam.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming.
Alhamdulillah. It's my pleasure to be here.
Sharing your thoughts. I want to thank everyone for listening. You've been listening to Mornings with Mubaraka on WNHHLP 103.5. I will see, and hear me next week. We're on Facebook Live. We're online. And this is Mubaraka Ibrahim reminding you to be a voice and not an echo. Thank you. That was good. That was awesome.
Before you go. Do you mind if I take a picture before you go?
Huh?
Do you mind if I take a picture?
Oh, my picture, his picture.
No.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
103.5.
Oh, it's perfect.
So are you guys on
Oh,
24/7?
it's kind of blinking.
Oh, sorry.